my neighbor's being crazy again, as I mentioned a few weeks ago. So now Ziggy's hiding, and this is all you're going to see of him. So in order to get a cameo from him, I had to come in this other room here. All right, thrill seekers, I'm having a lot of thrills today. As I mentioned a few weeks ago, I got a neighbor who's got some issues, and I had to call the cops on him this morning, and he's over there talking to the cops now, and that's why Ziggy is hiding, because he heard a lot of noise and yelling and stuff. But that's not your problem. Your problem is listening to today's Moldy Oldie. This was recorded on March 5th, 2009, on my birthday at Ventura College. It seems like people up there don't like it if you say Ventura with a CH sound. Anyway, Ventura College up in Ventura, California, where I used to speak quite often. And there is a question about stilling the mind, which is something my neighbor could use, and I have tried to talk to him about it, but that's another problem that's not your problem. Just letting you know what's going on in my life, because maybe you're interested in the drama. Anyhow, this is an interesting little clip with the students at Ventura College talking about the whole concept of stilling the mind, which is a concept I think is quite interesting, and maybe you'll enjoy it. And let's just take a look at me at Ventura College in 2009.
I have a question about kind of like the different styles of meditation, or like different ways I've heard about it. Was you talked about like sitting there and just letting it happen. That to me, it kind of like implies that there's not a lot of like trying going on, like just sitting there and letting it happen. But I've also heard it put as like stilling the mind, like that kind of implies like a lot of effort, like focusing on one, like something, whatever it is. So I just want to hear your take on that.
Well, there are different styles, and there are different styles within Buddhism as well. And then when you get outside of Buddhism, there's a lot of Hindu styles of meditation, and there are Christian styles of meditation too. So there's a lot of different things. The style that I learned is called shikantaza, which means just sitting, which is why I called the second book I wrote "Sit Down and Shut Up," because that was like that's what I had learned: sit down and shut up. There you go. And so in our style, it's the posture. I can't really demonstrate it here, but the posture is very, very key to it. You're sitting on a cushion with your legs kind of crossed, so you're making this tripod with your butt and sitting on a cushion and just sitting up straight and keeping your eyes open and just sitting there, holding this position. And the position is key to it because of this idea that body and mind are not two separate things. There are also efforts you can make to still the mind, like you're talking about. My problem with that, as it's kind of developed and I've kind of done this shikantaza practice, is any effort you make to still the mind is based on your own conception of what a stilled mind is like. So this has always been the case for me because I've made those efforts myself. You imagine what your mind should be like if it was still, and then you make an effort to force it into that thing. But that thing that you've invented, this imagination of what a stilled mind is already the product of the confusion that you're trying to find your way out of. So in some sense, it's like going backwards. You know, you're trying to use confusion to get rid of confusion, and that's not going to work. In my humble opinion, you should always qualify because sometimes people get mad. You wouldn't believe how mad Buddhists can get. I'll tell you some stories sometime. It's difficult to do the shikantaza practice because there's no like signposts, or there's nothing to judge yourself against. You can't say, well, I've reached level 7 now, I must be, halfway to be an arhat or whatever, some strange idea. All you're doing is just sitting there. And the practice in like a Zen retreat is very basic, and it's always like whatever. It's a kind of a process of going no, 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 and one of the kind of dangers or things that happens along the way as you're doing a kind of practice like this is you do start to have some kind of insights, and this is where it becomes necessary, I think, ultimately, or at least very, very useful to have a teacher, because your teacher, you'll bring your insights to your teacher, and your teacher will go, nope, 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 nope. There's one thing I talked about in my first book where I had the most mind-blowing insight that had ever occurred in my life. I was, total oneness with the universe and all this stuff that you always read about in books. I had this experience that I was like, the galaxies were my mere fingertips, and then all this great stuff. And I thought, oh my God, now I finally got it. And I went and brought this to my teacher, and he said, "You work in a company that makes cartoons, don't you?"
No, it's not cartoons. It's real life. My big inside.
But it's very useful to have somebody kind of bring you down to earth at that point, because ultimately here I am.
So like you're saying, kind of just sitting there and making your body still and just practicing that and just trying not to deviate.
Yeah.
Like that itself is like kind of like attempting to still the mind.
Well, it is in a way. It's kind of practicing stability, because I just tried to write about this recently, so I don't know. I don't know if I'll express it very well. But it's like if you've ever been on a boat and it's like rocking and stuff, and you get off the boat, it feels like really good, and it doesn't just feel good physically. It's like a relief mentally to be like finally on ground that's not moving around anymore. And this practice of Zazen is kind of like that. You just make yourself completely still, and the mental side takes care of itself, more or less. A lot of people, though, don't have that experience and get frustrated with it, like I have done, and like I do still sometimes. You're sitting there, and the mental process is not. It's just going, what are you doing? What did she do? Why is she doing that? And why is she talking to that guy? And I don't know why she's talking to that guy. I don't like that guy. I don't like that guy at all. I don't even care to that guy. I don't want to talk to that guy. What's that guy writing that stuff about me? I don't care about him. He's bad. It just goes on and on and on. But that's okay. That's also part of the process. It's one of the things that happens is you go through life unaware of the fact that this is all going on in your head all the time, and then you sit in your meditation and it's going on. And some people make the mistake of thinking, "Oh my God, because I'm sitting in this meditation, all this stuff is going on." It's not the case. It's just going on, and now you're noticing it, and that's actually a step in the right direction.
I went to the Buddhist temple in Cataquay, and I asked the question that I've tried to meditate before, and I can't. My brain's always everything I have to do. And he was telling me, ask one of the monks, and he said that's okay. That you let it come in, and you recognize that you're thinking about it, and then you just go, okay.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
And he says sometimes I'm sitting here, and he goes, I think my knee's really hurting. I'm sitting here, and he goes, I say, okay, and then I just let it go.
Yeah. And if you can let that go, you can let anything go. Once you get ultimately to that point, I saw your hand.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's segueing right into the kind of question I've been having for a while. So, when you're talking, you're implying that your thoughts are going wild on occasion, and that you're aware of it.
Yeah.
And you're watching it. There's an observer or something. And my most frequent experience is I'm an engineer. I make a living thinking about things. And I describe it metaphorically as just my eyes roll back in my head, and I just go on long streams of discursive thought. which is fine.
Yeah, it's
I've
useful.
been doing this for too long. But suddenly become the observer or whatever, become aware of this. My question is, do you just try to like chop it off and come back to the present, or do you just kind of follow it and just let it dissipate?
Well, I've given up on trying to chop it off myself. Are you talking about during during Zazen practice or during? Yeah. I've given up on trying to chop it off. I have done that, in my own time, and it's never worked very well. So, what I kind of feel like these days is when I find myself doing that, the thing to do is just stop. It's not a process of. I had thought that it was a process of trying to stop something, but that seemed to be the wrong answer. And the answer I've come up with for now is that it's more of a process of not adding to it. So rather than trying to put a cap on it and stop it, I'll now just try not to add anything else. So it'll go, but once you stop adding anything else to it, it's just going to be like, hey, but no, okay. And eventually, and it might take a while. If you're doing a job that requires you to think a lot while you're using that and you're putting some energy into it, it just takes time to calm down.
Yeah, no, I'm not being, saying there's anything wrong.
No,
What
yeah.
approach to take.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's useful. It's like we thought is very useful, but we make the mistake of thinking. I'm not saying you personally do, but we all kind of make the mistake of thinking it's ultimately useful. Like there's an answer to be found in thought.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there's no answer to be found in thought. There just isn't, which is very difficult to accept. I mean, I know it's been very difficult for me to accept, but there's just no answer in thought. It can answer specific questions. Like should I tighten the screw or loosen the screw? It can answer questions like that, but like more ultimate questions of meaning and so forth, it just doesn't